to another episode of Your Questions, My Answers, episode number 31. And this week it's just me and Brian. We're going guestless tonight. Jerry's supposed to be joining us shortly just to sit in. No responses from him this time around. And don't forget, episode 32 is the return of Jerry, and we're going to try to get Tom and Ed on as well. So it's going to be a nightmare for me in the editing room, but it should be a lot of fun, you know, during the whole process. But before we go anywhere or get started on anything, let's just take a second to note that our standard disclaimer does apply, and that is we reserve the right to be wrong. If something sounds just downright wrong or just a little off, feel free to contact us. We'll do our best to do a retraction and get things all squared away. But well, before we roll into questions and whatnot, Brian, I understand you're smoking a very special cigar. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and I'll get mine lit up.
Well, you know, a very special one. Yeah, I guess so. It's my first nub. I haven't ever smoked one of these yet. I know. I think I'm probably the last of the cigar reviewers around that hasn't tried one yet. But you know, and it also happens to be one Walt sent me. It's the Nub Cameroon, and I haven't tried an ash stand on it yet. But you never know. I may just do that before we burn the whole way through it. And as usual, I'm drinking my standard Kego Chino, very large cup of coffee. And you know, I should add to that disclaimer. I've just become aware that my opinions on cigars may cause nausea and or vomiting in some people, particularly people with unrefined palates. So I want to add that. I want everybody just to be cautious watching this, because you know, I really don't want anything bad to happen to any of our viewers. So how about you, Walt? What are you smoking?
Well, we decided to go with a sort of a nub theme show, so to speak, and I've got the Nub Connecticut. This is a 358. It's the smallest nub they make. They're not quite as good as the 460. It's amazing how much that 2-ring gauge does. Well, it's 2-ring gauge and an entire inch, but the flavors just are way. I just think they're much richer and nicer in the larger ring gauge cigars. Which isn't to say this is a bad smoke at all. I mean, I really enjoy these as well. I just happen to only have the smaller Connecticut tonight, and I'm saving my single 466 Habano for a later date, I suppose. So we're going with the Nub Connecticut 358, and to drink, I've got some restaurant style unsweetened iced tea, which I happen to like quite a bit. So I've got really no sugar added, pretty bland drink to go with a nice creamy cigar. So maybe the bitterness from the tea will complement it. Who knows? It's going to be a crazy show. Crazy with bitter tea and creamy cigars. But at any rate, let's get started. Segment 1 is sponsored by Dog Watch Cigar Radio. That is Bob and Dale, if you're not familiar with the show, and they offer you thoughtful conversation, considered opinion, and a touch of insanity. And rolling right along, our first question comes from Bob through the contact form. And he says, Walt, I love the site. I have 2 questions. 1, storing wrapped boxes of cigars in your humidor, is that okay? Or should one take the wrap off and unbox the cigars? I'm dealing with a large humidor, one that can store, say, 300 to 500 cigars. Mine can hold up to 500 depending on size, etc. Is it better to have the humidification device, in my case an Oasis XL Plus, located on the top tray or bottom? I have 2 trays and a storage space below for boxes. Does humidity drop or rise? If placement is needed lower in the humidor, then I'll need a longer power strip from the manufacturer. Thanks. So, Brian, how do you weigh in on this one, on Bob's humidification and storage issue? Sort of like a cello on or cello off with twist.
Well, you know, in terms of storing the boxes, I would kind of defer to what you'd see in your local B&M, and you'll notice that they'll have the shelves and shelves of open cigars for you to pick out your singles. But if you look either above or below, you'll typically see boxes, and a lot of times those are in the humidor with it's not cellophane, whatever, it's plastic shrink wrapping on it. So I'm really thinking it's not a big deal. They're not; those aren't that isn't airtight, so in most cases, a lot of times when they seal them, they'll leave little sections that are open, so you shouldn't, think of that as being kind of some sort of a sealed glass tube that'll keep the box fresh. But in terms of putting it in your humidor with the plastic on, I don't have a problem with that. I've done it myself. I don't typically leave them on because I'm usually rooting around in the boxes, so they come off pretty quick, but it's not something that bothers me. I guess one thing you need to keep in mind is, that bit of plastic, if you smell it and it has a really kind of a pungent scent on it, you may be imparting some of that on nearby cigars. It's kind of an outside type of chance, but it's possible. It could happen. Let's see. And with the Oasis XL, I've got an Oasis in my largest humidor, and I actually put it on the bottom. And my understanding is that the humidity, well, I guess it's twofold. It happens to be where the power supply is, and I always get it backwards. I think regarding the humidity, I think that the humidity tends to fall in the air. It tends to sink to the bottom. I'm thinking I'm right on that. Walt may have to correct me on this, but my thought is if I have it up top, in addition to having to string along cords in a kind of an ugly manner, I would, you'd run the risk of it dumping out humidity, and the humidity falling, so it keeps dumping like a waterfall of humidity, and which may result in the cigars at the bottom of the humidor being, grossly overhumidified, and you may run into problems with that. So. Yeah, it sounds like that's not what you wanted to hear because it looks like you need a longer power strip. Well, the thing is you're also talking about a smaller, and I'm not gonna lie to you, my humidor is pretty large as a cabinet deal, so it's location's a little bit more significant in there. So thinking about a 500, and I know roughly what size that is. I'm not thinking it's going to matter too much, honestly. I'd recommend augmenting it with some beads just to try to even things out. That's what I do. I've got at least a pound of beads scattered throughout mine. Not loose, of course, in containers and stuff. But I'd recommend augmenting that with beads in probably the opposite extreme location. All right, well, I got to turn this over to Walt. Am I wrong on anything I said? The humidity falling or whatever? I can never keep that straight. And, I always hear one thing and then another. So, what do you think, Walt?
Well, I also get this very confused, but I think you're right. I think that the dense air falls. So we're going to base my whole answer on my guess that dense air falls or humid air falls. And when you were talking, I was thinking about location within a cabinet, but then you kind of emphasized the fact that he's got a 500 count unit. So I'm thinking maybe it's an oversized desktop, or you have any idea what that could possibly be?
Well, yeah, I also have a I think they call it the quote unquote Cuban boot locker or foot locker thing that I bought when I thought that I could get away without having a cabinet, which was just an absolute wrong assumption. But and that's supposed to be 300 to 500. So it's kind of, that particular one's kind of deep. I don't think any of the smaller humidors even come close to that. But with that, I could see there might be a slight difference in it. I would guess it's not more than maybe a couple feet tall. It's kind of a tall humidor. Do you know what I'm talking about, Walt? It's got the same dimensions in terms of length and depth as a when you're looking at the top of it. It's just taller, I guess, is what it boils down to, and that's supposed to be in the neighborhood of 300 to 500 cigars. And I don't have an Oasis in that particular one. I just use the puck, and that works fine for me. If you were able to put a cigar Oasis in that, I'm sure that would work too. But I'd probably still use a puck in that one too, to augment that. But long story short, yeah, that's about the size I'm thinking of. It's it's like it would be a really large, either display or kind of a Foot Locker style humidor wall.
Okay, so I'm thinking sort of like a tower unit that Cigars International sells, something similar to that. He mentioned having one shelf, so yeah, I'm getting all confused trying to picture this thing. But in any case, I would think that putting the Oasis unit on the top shelf or at the topmost position in this humidor, you'd have a tendency, because they have a circulator fan in them, and I think they blow straight up. So I would think that the circulator fan is going to blow the humidity right at the lid of your humidor, which I guess it wouldn't be overly bad. I mean, it would just hit the top and sort of mushroom out and roll down around the sides and whatnot. But I would be a little more concerned with like the humidity hitting one spot in the humidor all the time. I'd much rather get it lower and have it blow air up so it can circulate a little bit. I'm probably just being a little anal at that point. I'm sure it wouldn't really be an issue if it were high, but I think that I would prefer it to be down low, let the fan do its job and push the humidity up and then let it naturally fall again. But that's just, I don't know, that's just my crazy idea of how that it should work, or at least in my mind. And as far as the storing of boxes, sometimes I get boxes in to ship back out, give stuff away for contest prizes. And typically what I do is I throw them right in the cooler as I get them. I don't take the cellophane or the plastic wrap off until I'm ready to open the box. Now if I get something that I'm ready to smoke right away, I'll take that shrink wrap off, open the box, pull a cigar out, close the box again, and toss it back in my unit. So I don't concern myself with removing them from the box and getting them on trays and whatnot. I mean, that may be a solution or a great way to sort of speed up the aging process of your cigars. You're going to get a little more air circulation around them if you unbox them and uncellophane them and whatnot. But I don't really think you're going to hurt anything by sticking the entire box right in your cooler, your humidor, or your cabinet, whatever you might have. Unless, just as Brian said, it has a very distinct, pungent sort of plastic aroma to it, then you might want to take it off. But I don't know, just do what feels right at the moment. I really don't think it's going to hurt either way, regardless of whether it be on or off, unless the cigars are like overly dry or something, in which case it's going to take them longer to get up to humidity because they've got shrink wrap all around them. But then again, that might be a good thing. If they're overly dry, you're going to be slowly bringing them back up to humidity. But then again, you really don't know until you open the box whether or not they're dry, unless you know that they've been sitting out on your front porch for a week while you're on Christmas vacation or something like that. But that's what I've got, Bob. Hopefully that helps you out. Brian, anything else come to mind when I was rambling on there?
Well, I was just thinking, I actually just got a couple of boxes of cigars in the mail today, and they were in plastic, and I put them right in the humidor. I didn't mess with them at all. I'll probably want to break into them sometime pretty soon, but no hurry to take the plastic off. I don't know if you saw the link I just sent to you, Walt, but I think that is the Foot Locker is the kind of humidor the guy's got, and I can see why the power cord will be a problem. And yeah, the humidification unit just hitting the one spot of the wood constantly could be a problem. But the thing is, I would think with some of these Oasises, they're kind of designed with the idea that it's going to be in a desktop humidor and it's going to be doing that. I don't know, maybe they've done something to address that, but if it's the humidor, I think it is. It might be better if it was in the bottom, but just because of the layout of the humidor, you might have not really any other reasonable alternative. You got to go out and buy a power cord, and you're going to use up a lot of real estate in that deep bottom of your humidor that you're not going to want to cover it, because then you're not going to get your, you're going to over soak some cigars. So you might actually, if it's the one I think it is, if it's this Foot Locker humidor, I would say you probably are going to really have to keep that in the top. And then just, I don't know, I would still think go get some beads or throw a puck in the bottom someplace, to try to make sure that everything stays, humid throughout reasonably. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, just looking at that link you sent me, I'm not quite sure. That's exactly what he has, but if that is similar to what he has, yeah, that's kind of tough. You need a lot of cord to get down inside the bottom of that box. And if it were a cabinet, I'd just say cut a hole in the back and put an outlet in the back of the cabinet. Silicone it up, do your best to seal up the receptacle, and you should be fine. But in a situation like this, I wouldn't recommend putting an outlet on the back of a desktop humidor. That'd be kind of foolish. But as far as I know, these things take like a water canister, right? So could you theoretically turn this thing vertical and lay it in there that way if you had enough room underneath the tray? It shouldn't spill or anything, right? Do you think it would still function?
Wow, I don't know. I know with the large Oasis unit that I have, there's no chance that would work. It would spill everywhere. I'm not sure about that. I'm trending towards no. I'm thinking you can't do it, but hey, it's worth an experiment. I mean, if you guys already got the equipment, you could give it a shot and see how it works. Just try to stand it up on a paper towel or something, and just see if it starts dripping everywhere or something like that. Not inside. Don't do it inside until you've verified that. But I don't know. I don't know about the small ones, because the big one I've got, it's got a huge water reservoir, and basically inside of it, it's got a massive green block of foam. It's like a brick, basically. You could build you had enough of them, you could build the Great Pyramid out of it. It's huge. So yeah, I'm thinking no, but I'm thinking it'd be worth a shot. I still think you might save him on the cord. Yeah, I mean, if it works, I mean that might not be a bad idea. But you got to remember that that's going to be shooting, because you're going to probably be keeping boxes in the bottom there, so that's going to wind up shooting humidity instead of at like the ceiling of the humidor. It's going to be shooting it right at a box, and wind up with with dripping cigars out of one box and maybe bone dry ones out of another. I don't know. I just it's a thought. If you figure it out right, I think it's got dividers underneath that it rests on, so maybe it'd be a case of you slide a divider all the way over so you kind of isolate that. But I don't know how well that'll work either. So I don't know. Experiment.
Well, I was thinking that because I've seen the water canisters advertised, they're the refill kits, and I just assumed they were sort of like a baby diaper inside, so that you could turn them every which way, they wouldn't drip or anything. Like what are they? Gel-filled batteries. Like the older batteries, you turn them upside down, water leaked out, you had to fill them every once in a while. The new batteries, they're sealed. If you don't kind of understand where I'm going with that, I was thinking that the canister was tightly sealed, and maybe it just kind of wicked out from one point, so that there was no chance of leakage or anything. I wasn't aware that they were sort of open like that, or you could add water to them. I thought once and done kind of thing. You bought one of these things every 6 months to a year, and that was just the end of it. But it seems that that's really not the case. So maybe not try stand it up, unless of course it is something new and innovative, and you can do that with them. I don't know, just a thought.
Okay, well, I guess I think we got that question thoroughly answered, or thoroughly confused, I guess. I don't know which. So we probably should move on to the question from Jason we got via voicemail.
Hi, Walt. This is Jason Taylor. My question is about the cost of cigar packaging. Let's just say, for instance, I wanted to buy a box of Tranio Virtuoso Crescendos. They come in a very nice box, but I only need so many cigar boxes. So let's just say, how much would I save on if these came in a bundle form? Thanks for having the show, and I enjoy it, and keep up the good work. Thanks. Bye.
Well, Jason, I'm not 100% sure. I don't get to see wholesale sheets or retailer sheets or anything like that. So I don't know what the price is on cigars. I know a little bit because every once in a while I get something will come in and I'll be giving it away or something, and the person in shipping will toss that sheet in, that pricing sheet, MSRP versus wholesale, and it's kind of shocking with the markup on some of the cigars. But from asking around, it's kind of common. But I really don't know what's involved with the packaging price. Now, I know that there are a couple of companies out there that do refills, and I remember it was a while back. It was at a cigar shop quite a ways from here, actually, where I'm at now, and the owner used to buy Rocky Patel Old World Reserve bundle refill kits, and I guess they were his better customers. I don't know what it is, but he used to have some regulars that would come in and buy these refill kits. So he'd just up and buy the bundle of Old World Reserves. And, I wasn't standing over his shoulder to see what he rung them up for, but it seemed like there was a considerable savings there going that route rather than buying the whole box or buying this or that. The option to pick up these bundles was well worth it. And now I'm not sure what companies actually do that and which ones don't. I would think that anyone that sells large quantity cigars, such as like the El Legendario by Camacho. It comes in a big display case for the retail shops. I would think there may be bundle refill kits for that. So maybe that would be available. But some of the other lines that come in the ornate boxes, I don't necessarily know that you could get refill kits for those. I think I remember the CAO Vision. It's got that bright, fancy, lighted up box. And that one doesn't come with a refill kit, from what I understand. You're forced to buy that box every time you need cigars. So that was kind of a downside to that whole brand from the retailers, from what I understood. So I can't tell you which manufacturers offer these refill kits and which ones don't. Your best bet would be to befriend your local B&M shop owner and kind of hint around that you don't need any more cigar boxes and you'd like to buy the refill kits if at all possible, and see if it'll work with you. I doubt you'll be able to pick up these sort of things online. I think that would be more for your local shop, because truth be told, what does the internet retailer need refill kits for? He's selling either 5-packs, which he may be pulling out of the boxes or anything, but he's not refilling the boxes. But then again, if he's selling 5-packs, he doesn't need to refill a box. It would be cheaper to get the. Well, anyway, I don't know. That's a whole thing. But I think that the local retailer would be more likely to have that sort of thing, and it'd be a great opportunity to befriend your local shop owner and see if you can work a deal with them. Maybe it's an option, but I can't tell you what ones are available because I have no idea. Brian, did I confuse you enough with that answer? I think I confused myself more than anything.
Yeah, I'm a little puzzled. I've heard stuff about refill kits. I've never looked into it. I don't know of any place to buy that. I haven't really asked though, so I'm really not sure. Yeah. In terms of one thing I was going to mention that and you brought it up. You actually brought it up was the CAO Vision. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer you can't refill that because you don't want to buy that again, that humidor each time that you want to. But then again, on the flip side, it's got a huge resale value. I mean, on eBay they were selling for $70-$80. I think they're still finding them going for 50 or so. I would guess. Maybe still up there. I'm not sure, but the thing with the packaging, the question about how much the packaging costs, that particular instance is one of the examples people cite when it comes to complaining about the price of packaging and concerns and complaining about the price of cigars. And CAO swears, and I've heard this a couple of times, that the packaging for the Vision was not any more expensive than your standard cigar box, and that's the line that I've been told. And it's plastic, and I kind of believe them, because I mean, I don't know where they make it, but say maybe they make it in China, maybe a lot of things made in China that are plastic. Anyway, if they make it there, it's all from what I understand. I haven't looked at one very closely. It's just mostly plastic and a little bit of electronics and a humidipack. So I can see where I can see how I can understand that. So it looks slick, but in theory, it's not more expensive than a box. I really don't know. It's one of those things that aside from that example where it was such a big deal, people were complaining about having to buy that and assuming that drove up the price of the cigars. Aside from that particular issue, you don't hear too much about the actual price, the costs of the packaging itself. I mean, I would obviously bundles tend to be less expensive, and I think that it's figured in. Um, but I don't know how much of it's the quality of the tobacco and how much of it's the packaging and a lot of other stuff that just it's behind the scenes. It just people don't know about it. Like Walt says, there is a lot of markup in cigars from wholesale to MSRP, and that makes sense. These shops are trying to pay for these, in some cases, very large, very lavish, lounges and whatnot. So they got to pay the bills. So the markup really makes sense to me, honestly. But in some cases, in others, it's a little crazy. But it will surprise you if you've never seen them before. But yeah, I'm taking a long time to say I don't know. So that is my final answer. I don't know. You got anything more to add to this, Wall?
Yeah, actually, I had something pop into mind while you were talking. Back around Christmas, I think it was, I was talking to my local shop owner, and he had just gotten back from a trip to, where'd he go? Nicaragua, I guess. He was down to the Rocky Patel facility, which is the Nestor Plasencia factory. From what I understand, it borders both Nicaragua and Honduras, so he may have gone to either. But in any case, he goes down there to the Rocky Patel factory, or the Rocky Patel facility, and he was down there with a couple other retailers, and they were all looking into getting their own house blend. And I just talked to him, I guess about a week or two ago, about that particular house blend to see where it was at. And he had made mention to me that it's going to be coming out very, very soon. He's going to be getting it. I think they do shipments once a month, and next month he's, figuring on having these cigars. And one of the things that he mentioned to me was that he's going to be getting them totally naked, no cellophane, no box. It's just going to be bundles. I guess they're just wheels of cigars bundled. And he made mention that they were considerably less going that route than if he were to have them cellophaned and banded. So he's going to be selling these bundles in his store as is, per bundle, for a whole bundle. And he's going to have some custom bands made up for singles that he sells in his shop. And you would have to think that the time it was going to take him to physically apply each band. He mentioned a foot band, but you would think the time it's going to take him to apply this band and to stack them in the tray and do all this other stuff, that he's got to be saving some money in the long run. Otherwise, it would make more sense to just have the factory do it. I would think they should be able to do it for much less than an individual could. So I don't know whether he's looking at it as, I only need to band and organize 20% of what comes in, and maybe that's where the savings comes in at. But in any case, he had mentioned that it was a significant savings to go with a totally naked cigar rather than one with a band, cellophane, and a box, or an ornate box, or whatever the case may be. So while I don't know the exact figures, that's one example of saving a little money there by avoiding packaging. So I don't know what that equates to in the end of the line when you're picking up a cigar and it's out of an ornate box with cellophane, a band, and all the other good stuff with it.
Well, I think I once heard that somebody was talking about the difference in rolling, in producing cigars in, say, Miami versus, I don't know, Dominican Republic or someplace else. And I wish I remember the exact figure, but I think that included the price of, the rollers and the, of course, the slapping on of all of the cello and boxing and all that sort of thing. And I think it was per cigar price was like, I'm guessing, I'm kind of ballparking it here, so I could be really off, but I was thinking it was like 30 cents a cigar in like Dominican Republic or whichever place this person was talking about, and closer to $1 or more per cigar in the United States. So that figures into it. So you get the labor costs in addition to the packaging. So that still doesn't tell you the price of the packaging, but it's kind of an interesting pseudo statistic, because it's probably completely wrong, but there was a significant difference between the costs in the United States versus the cost in these other countries. So I I don't know if that really helps. Maybe we'll just let's just move along into we've killed that. We'll move along to Paul via the contact form. This message is primarily for Walt, and I'm reading it, but the gang can chime in with their preferences. Oh, okay. I'm a fairly recent visitor to this forum and have already picked up that Walt is not a fancier of Dominican filler tobacco due to the salty aftertaste. What country do you prefer your filler tobacco to come from, and why? Well, what do you think, Walt? This is primarily for you.
Yeah, I think I don't know, maybe I didn't get back to him on the forums, and he sent that in through the contact form, which is fine. It just goes to show that at least I really need to spend more time on the forum, and I apologize for my my absence. Before, I'm not going to go into excuses and whatnot. I'm going to try to fix that in the very near future. But in any case, Dominican tobacco is probably my least favorite, and again, that's probably from that salty, savory sort of flavor that I typically get out of Dominican tobacco. But there are some cigars that swing the other way, like La Flor Dominicana cigars are, I don't get that whole salty, savory mixture with them, and I enjoy them quite a bit. Some of the Fuente line is the same way. I enjoy those without getting that overly salty flavor. Then again, there are some other ones that I guess they cater to the people that like that sort of flavor. So they're on the other end of the spectrum, and they're just too much for me. So Dominican Republic would be last. My second, I'm going to do three. The middle one, which originally was my favorite, is Honduras. I get a little bit of that salty, savory sort of flavor from them, but they just seem to be a little richer, and that saltiness is toned way, way down. I just like the flavor, over in general. And my favorite filler tobacco typically comes from Nicaragua, and the reason being is just I really love that Dale Rausch coined Nick Zing. I really think it makes the tobacco, and I've had lots and lots of excellent cigars that come out of Nicaragua, and it just never ceases to amaze me how good the product gets. Maybe it's because I smoke probably 3 times as many Nicaraguan cigars as I do Honduran, and I don't know, probably 10 times as many as I do as Dominican. So of course I'm going to get that a lot more often with the cigars that I smoke more often, and that being the Nicaraguan cigars. But the filler being a blend, that makes a big difference too. If you're, I do like Nicaraguan puros, but there are some very good cigars that have a mixture of all 3 of those countries in them, and I enjoy those. But a simple answer to your question is my favorite is Nicaragua. So, Brian, why don't you? What is your take on the whole filler?
Well, that's a good question, actually. I've just been thinking about it recently, and I noticed that I don't know why. It just so happens that a lot of the cigars I have been smoking are coming out of the Dominican Republic. So I don't think it's my least favorite. Oh boy, I don't know. I haven't even tried ranking these before. I got to say though that I've had the occasional Nick Puro, and those have been consistently good from every example I can recall. See, Honduras, you get a lot of Camacho stuff is out of there, and I like that. It's hard to say. It kind of varies. For a while, I would have agreed with Walt that Nicaragua is my favorite, but I'm so in the tank for Aragonese cigars right now that I'm smoking I'm smoking tons of Dominican tobacco. So boy, man, I don't know that I would say it's my favorite tobacco though. So boy, ranking them is hard. Ranking them is very hard because I can when I think about it, I can think of stuff that I like from each region. So I'm going to have to say that right now it's probably a tie between Dominican and Nicaraguan, and then Honduras has got to, just by volume of what I'm smoking, Honduras has got to take 3rd place. And no offense to anybody, and I love me some Camacho too, but yeah, I don't know. That's a I kind of wish I would have actually read the notes before the show, so I could have thought about that one a little bit. That would have helped. You have anything more to add to this, Walt?
Yeah, and that was that's kind of like the generic three too. I mean, you've got tobacco from the Bahamas. Bucanero, I hear, makes some excellent cigars. I've yet to smoke a single Bucanero cigar, and I really need to change that. I hear they're fantastic. You've got cigars from Brazil, for example, the Alonso Menendez, what are the other ones they make? Donna Flor, and there's one other one it's not coming into my mind at this point in time. But there are some other countries that have the filler blends out there that that are very good also. So by selecting those three that we did, I think we just went the generic route and really didn't dive into it as much as we could have. But then again, of all the cigars I smoked, I think those three countries that we named, the Dominican Republic, Honduras, and Nicaragua, I think we've probably smoked, I don't know, far more cigars from those countries than all the other smaller countries combined. The ones that are less popular. So yeah, for a generic kind of view at it, there we are. There's our top three generic countries and what we think of them.
No, that pretty much is it. I was thinking about it, and I was going to say something about Connecticut, but I'm like, no, that's not filler though. That's wrapper usually, and so is and a lot of the Brazilian tobacco I smoke. I think it's mostly the wrapper that's the Brazilian. I don't smoke a lot of Brazilian cigars, and with the issue around Donna Flor, it looks like I'll be smoking even less of them than I had been for at least a little while. So it's I don't know. I think we really nailed the big three filler ones. Yeah. So Walt, I'll just go ahead and tell you how my cigar's doing then, because I'm kind of a rude jerk, and then I'll let you tell them how your cigar's doing. I wanted to get on it because I wanted to say that I tried so very hard to get this to do a nub stand, and as you're looking at it, you'll see that the ash did not stay with me, up to the band like I'd hoped. No, I did adjust the band a little bit to keep it from burning. The foot was uneven, and the ash, and it might be the Cameroon, was just a little flaky, so I don't think it was quite sturdy enough. If I could have gotten it balanced right, I think it would have held, but I'm not sure that it wouldn't have just kind of crumbled through either. So that's how I'm doing. We'll see if I make it through this production break with the nub. I may have to go find a toothpick. How you doing, Walt?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm just kind of glancing back and forth. I don't know what our total elapsed time is now. Probably, I don't know, about 40 minutes now. I don't know, about a third of the way through my nub, which was only 3 inches to begin with. And, it's smoking very well. Exactly like I would have expected. Nice even burn, cool smoke, great flavor. And I could easily do a nub stand with this. I've got a nice flat end. The ash seems very compact. I'm not going to try because you're not going to see it in the camera anyway unless I readjust it, and then you'll see my mess, and I don't want that. But speaking of nub stands, if you head over to Cigar Live, you'll see I got bored, so I decided to take a nub stand shot. And what I did was I stood a nub Connecticut up on its base so that the exposed foot was up, and I rigged it so that it stayed that way. Then I smoked the Habano, and I wish I would have let the ash get longer, but I stood the nub, doing a nub stand on top of the Cameroon, and I don't know, I thought the picture was pretty cool. Sam liked it, so at any rate, you want to see the picture, head over to Nub Live and go over to the nub stand section, and you'll see my odd, strange take of a nub on top of a nub. So aside from that, cigar's doing great, and well, not really aside from that, but cigar's doing great. I'm done my tea. I'm going to be switching over to water now, and for no particular reason, just feeling like some water. So we'll see how the cigar goes with just water.
All right then. Well, with that, I think it's time for our first production break. And we'll see you here in just a second.
Hey, Walt, this is Pete from California, and I was just reviewing online on the Habano Nub 464, I believe. One of the contacts there was asking if a sampler was available, and I believe AtlanticCigars.com is having a 12-pack sampler, one of each size from all three lines, for $49.95. I figure I'd let you know you could pass it on to the fellow viewers and the watchers. All right, well, I appreciate it, and keep up the good work. This is Pete from California, and you have a good one.